The Galactic Council chamber had not heard the word war spoken in 3,000 years. That alone made the silence unbearable. The chamber hung above a white dwarf star, its light spilling through crystal walls like frozen fire. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in rising rings, species of every shape and size watching the central platform. This was where trade disputes ended, where borders were argued, where peace had been maintained for longer than most civilizations could remember. Today, the rules broke. A towering figure stepped forward, armored, sharp-edged, confident. The Supreme Marshal of the Virex Dominion. A species built for conquest, restrained only by treaties and time. His voice carried without amplification. By unanimous decision of the Dominion High Command, he said, we formally declare war on the species known as humanity. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward in shock. Others laughed quietly, confused. A few checked historical records, as if the word itself might be a mistake. War was obsolete. The Marshal continued, his tone almost bored. Humanity has refused expansion limits, rejected council integration, and continues to operate unknown facilities within restricted sectors. Their silence is no longer acceptable. The massive display behind him shifted, showing a small blue-marked region of space. Human territory. Compared to the great empires, it was tiny. A minor species. Late arrivals. No visible megafleets. No council power. No recent wars. Someone scoffed. A trade delegate whispered. They'll surrender before the fleet even arrives. Another added. If they even have a fleet. The Marshal's mandibles curled in what passed for a smile. We expect total compliance within one standard cycle. All eyes turned toward the human delegation platform. It was empty. No guards. No banners. Just a single seat. Then the air shifted. A human appeared, not in a flash, but smoothly, as if reality made room for him. He was older than most council species expected. Gray at the temples. Calm posture. Dark uniform with no visible rank. No weapons. He looked around the chamber slowly, meeting alien eyes without flinching. The Marshal laughed openly. You send one. The human tilted his head slightly. We always send one. More laughter. The Marshal raised his voice. You understand what this means, human? Your worlds will burn. Your people will scatter. Your history will end. The human listened. He did not interrupt. When the Marshal finished, the chamber waited for pleading. For outrage. For fear. Instead, the human smiled. It was small. Controlled. Not mocking. But it froze the room. I acknowledge your declaration, the human said. His voice was calm, clear, and steady. Humanity has received your intent. The Marshal frowned. That is all. The human nodded. That is all that is required. No threats. No bargaining. No warning. The connection ended. The human vanished. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then laughter erupted again, louder this time. Did you see that? Someone said. They didn't even argue. They know they've lost. The smartest thing they've done is accept it quickly. The Marshal turned away, already issuing orders. Mobilize all invasion groups. Enter human space at once. Across the galaxy, fleets moved. Thousands of ships, ancient designs upgraded with modern weapons, poured toward the quiet human sector. Sensors detected nothing in return. No formations. No defensive lines. Human space looked empty. Too empty. As the first wave crossed the boundary, something strange happened. Long-range scanners flickered. Star charts updated themselves. Regions marked as inactive began to glow. Deep within human territory, structures that had not transmitted a signal in millennia powered on. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Calmly. On human worlds, cities did not panic. There were no riots. No emergency broadcasts screaming fear. People moved with purpose. Children were escorted underground. Civilians boarded transports without shouting. Soldiers did not rush, they walked. As if this moment had been rehearsed. As if it had always been coming. The first alien scout fleet vanished. No explosion. No distress call. Just silence. Command assumed malfunction. They sent another. That one disappeared faster. The Marshal demanded answers. Sensors showed nothing. No weapons fire, no debris, no energy surge. It was as if the ships had been erased. Still, the invasion continued. Pride demanded it. Then, at the edge of human space, the void twisted. Not visibly at first. Just enough for instruments to scream warnings too late. Gravity bent sideways. Time stuttered. Alien weapons went dark. Entire battle groups found themselves frozen, drifting, systems dead, crews alive but helpless. A single human signal cut through every channel at once. Clear, calm, unmistakable. This is human command, the voice said. You have crossed into restricted space. No anger, no shouting, just certainty. We advised peace for 3,000 years, the voice continued. You have chosen otherwise. The alien crews listened in stunned silence as their ships hung powerless. This is your final warning, the voice said. Turn back. In the council chamber, alarms erupted as live feeds flooded in. Laughter died instantly. The marshal stared at the display. Frozen fleets, silent ships, impossible readings. This is impossible, he whispered. Across the galaxy, leaders leaned forward, fear replacing arrogance. And somewhere, far beyond the council's reach, ancient human war engines finished waking up. Not with rage, but with purpose. The long peace was over, and humanity was done pretending. Shock did not spread through the galaxy all at once. It crept. In command halls, in council chambers, in quiet observation decks where officers stared at frozen screens and refused to speak. Entire alien battle groups hung motionless inside human space, not destroyed, not damaged, just stopped. Alive. That detail terrified them most. The Galactic Council reconvened in an emergency session within minutes. The white dwarf star beneath the chamber burned brighter as power levels surged, feeding panic into every system. This violates every known law of physics, a crystalline delegate said, its voice fracturing with static. You cannot shut down fleets without energy signatures. A reptilian strategist slammed a claw against the table, then explained the frozen armadas. No one could. The Virex Dominion's supreme marshal stood rigid, staring at the feed. Pride had drained from his posture. His mandibles twitched, not in anger, but uncertainty. Human trickery, he finally said. Illusions. Psychological warfare. But the data refused to agree. Time dilation spikes. Gravity distortions measured across impossible distances. Effects too controlled to be accidents. This was not a trap. It was infrastructure. Deep within the council archives, a minor analyst began cross-checking ancient records. His species had cataloged galactic history longer than most. Dusty files surfaced, ignored for thousands of years. Old warnings. Forgotten footnotes. One phrase appeared again and again, written in different languages across different eras. If they are silent, let them be. The analyst felt his skin tighten. Counselors, he said carefully. There are anomalies regarding humanity. The chamber barely listened. They have no war record, someone snapped. No conquests. No empire. No, the analyst replied. They have no recent war record. The screen shifted. Old star maps appeared. Regions now marked as empty space. Entire civilizations gone with no recorded victor. No aftermath battles. No monuments. Only dates. 3,000 years ago. Before the peace. The analyst swallowed. Multiple collapses aligned with early human expansion timelines. But the humans were never listed as participants. The Supreme Marshal turned slowly. Are you suggesting humanity destroyed entire powers without being recorded? I am suggesting, the analyst said, voice tight, that someone erased them from history. In human space, the frozen alien fleets drifted in silence. Inside one immobilized cruiser, Commander Threx stood on the bridge, staring at the stars. His weapons were useless. His engines died. Even internal systems responded only when allowed. But life support remained stable. That, too, felt intentional. A human figure appeared on the main display. Not armored. Not threatening. Just a woman in a dark uniform. Her expression unreadable. You are being held, she said calmly. Do not attempt resistance. It will not succeed. Threx bared his teeth. Why are we alive? The human tilted her head slightly, as if considering the question. Because destruction is loud, she replied. And we prefer quiet. The feed cut. Across human worlds, something else was happening. Vast underground facilities opened, doors sealed for generations. Inside them waited ships no one alive had ever seen fly. Designs ignored beauty for function. Hulls are scarred not by rust, but by history. Veteran crews walked familiar paths, hands brushing walls like old friends. These were not conscripts, not recruits. They were caretakers. Human children watched from shelters as fleets passed overhead without sound. No cheers, no fear, only understanding. In one world, an elderly man stood beside a young officer, looking up at the sky. They finally chose, the man said. The officer nodded. Yes, sir. Do you think the galaxy remembers what we did last time? No. The officer answered honestly. They forgot on purpose. Back at the council, the truth began to land. Humanity had not expanded aggressively because they had learned what unchecked power did to the galaxy. They had not built visible fleets because visibility invited challenges. They had not spoken because speaking invited fear. They had waited. The Supreme Marshal slammed his fist down. Enough speculation. Resume the assault. Overwhelm their defenses. A counselor shouted back. You have already lost entire armadas. We still have numbers. The marshal turned, eyes blazing. Then we bury them under our dead. The order went out. Every remaining Virex fleet accelerated. Human space responded. Not with panic. With movement. Entire star systems shifted alignment. Navigation beacons changed positions. Gravity wells deepened where none should exist. Human space did not feel empty anymore. It felt alive. The first of the new alien fleets entered and immediately fragmented. Ships scattered across vast distances, cut off from each other by warped space. Human vessels appeared among them without warning. Not firing. Watching. A message echoed through every alien channel. This is containment phase 2. The phrase meant nothing to the galaxy. But to humanity, it meant everything. On a distant human command world, deep beneath stone and steel, a council older than any alien alliance gathered around a dim table. One voice broke the silence. They didn't turn back. Another replied, heavy with regret, they never do. A third voice, calm and final, spoke the words humanity had hoped would never be needed again. Authorize awakening of the legacy fleets. Keys turned. Signals traveled faster than light. Across forgotten corners of space, something ancient answered. Not ships, not weapons, but systems designed to end wars before they consumed reality itself. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the feeds shifted again. New shapes appeared on sensors. Massive, impossible, older than the peace, older than most stars nearby. The Supreme Marshal stared, dread finally overtaking arrogance. What are those? The answer came from a human transmission, broadcast openly to the entire galaxy. They are the reason, the voice said softly. We smiled. And as the alien fleets realized what had begun to wake, the galaxy understood a terrible truth. The peace had never been natural. It had been enforced. And now, the enforcers were done waiting. Fear did not explode across the galaxy. It settled. Like gravity. The new sensor contacts did not behave like ships. They did not maneuver. They did not accelerate. They simply existed, and that alone bent every prediction model into uselessness. Mass readings climbed, then broke scale. Age estimates conflicted with stellar formation data. Some of the objects predated nearby suns. In the Galactic Council chamber, voices fell quiet as the displays struggled to keep up. The white dwarf beneath them flared, its light reflecting off faces that no longer showed disbelief, but recognition of danger. A senior archivist spoke first. His species had survived 6 extinction cycles. These signatures, he said slowly, match nothing currently alive. The Supreme Marshal of the Virex Dominion stepped closer to the projection. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by something tighter. Then what are they? The archivist hesitated. Relics, he said. Or custodians. The word spread uneasily. Custodians implied duty, responsibility, authority, human authority. In deep human space, the legacy fleets finished waking. They did not announce themselves. They did not power weapons. Their presence alone stabilized warped regions, smoothed torn gravity, and locked space into rigid order. Chaos retreated wherever they drifted. Human commanders watched silently as systems synced. No cheering, no speeches, only confirmation tones. On one such vessel, the UNS Last Argument, Captain Mara Ionescu stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind her back. The ship was ancient, older than her homeworld's oldest cities. but every surface hummed with quiet readiness. "Status," she said. "All legacy nodes are active," an officer replied. "Containment grids holding. No civilian losses. Enemy fleets." Confused, the officer said after a pause. "They are attempting to regroup, but space won't allow it." The captain nodded. "Begin Phase 3. Across scattered battle zones, human vessels moved, not aggressively, but decisively. They inserted themselves between alien ships, gently forcing separation, locking trajectories, and preventing collisions. Alien crews watched in disbelief as their ships were herded like debris. On one immobilized Virex carrier, Admiral Kor watched a human vessel glide past his viewport. It dwarfed his ship without appearing bulky, its surface etched with scars that told stories older than his species. A channel opened. The same calm human voice returned. "You are not under attack," it said. "You are under control." Kor snarled. "You declared nothing. You hid this power." "Yes," the human replied. "Because power invites challenge." "Then why show it now?" There was a pause. "Because you forced us to choose between silence and survival." The channel closed. Kor slumped into his command chair, the weight of realization crushing him. This was not a war. This was a lesson. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, emergency delegations demanded answers. "You lied to us," one counselor shouted at the human seat, now occupied once more. The same gray-haired representative stood calmly amid the chaos. "You told us nothing," another accused. The human did not deny it. "We told you exactly what you needed to know," he said. "We wanted peace." "Peace built on fear," someone cried. The human's eyes hardened, not with anger, but sadness. "Peace built on restraint," he corrected. "Fear was your addition." The council erupted. Then the feeds changed again. New data streams poured in, historic overlays, corrected timelines, restored archives. Humanity was releasing information it had buried for millennia. The truth spilled out. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy had been burning. Empires rose, clashed, collapsed. Weapons grew faster than wisdom. Entire regions of space destabilized by reckless war. Humanity had entered that era young and learned faster than anyone. They did not conquer. They ended conflicts. Quietly, decisively. They dismantled war engines, erased supply lines, and collapsed empires without leaving banners behind. Then they erased themselves from the records, leaving the galaxy to believe the peace happened naturally. Because if the galaxy knew peace required guardians, it would test them. The council chamber fell silent as the last file finished loading. The Supreme Marshal whispered, "You've been controlling us for 3,000 years." The human representative shook his head. "No, we have been stopping you from destroying yourselves." In human space, Phase 3 concluded. Alien fleets were fully contained. No shots fired. No explosions. No heroic last stands. Just surrender through inevitability. Then something changed. At the edge of the containment zone, a new energy spike appeared. Violent, unstable, desperate. A Virex doomsday weapon, long forbidden even by their own laws, began charging. A last act of pride. On the last argument, alarms chimed. Unauthorized energy buildup detected, an officer reported. They're attempting system collapse. Captain Ionescu's jaw tightened. They would rather burn everything than admit defeat. Orders. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she opened a channel, direct, unfiltered, to the Virex command ship. "This ends now," she said. The Virex admiral roared back. "If we fall, we take you with us." "No," the captain replied evenly. "You don't." She nodded once. Human systems reacted instantly. Space around the doomsday weapon folded inward, compressing energy into harmless density. The weapon imploded silently, its power drained and neutralized without a shockwave. The Virex ship went dark. Across the galaxy, leaders watched in stunned horror. Humanity has not just stopped war. They had rewritten what war meant. In the council chamber, the Supreme Marshal collapsed into his seat. "We never had a chance," he said. The human representative looked at him, not with triumph, but with regret. "You did," he said softly. "You just didn't listen." Silence filled the chamber. Then a new fear took root, not of destruction, but of judgment. If humanity could stop wars without fighting, what else could they do? On a distant human world, children slept safely underground while above them. The legacy fleets held the galaxy in balance. And for the first time in 3,000 years, peace felt fragile, not because it might break, but because the galaxy finally understood what it had been resting on. As the council session ended, one final human transmission echoed across every known channel. "This conflict is not over," the voice said. "It is being corrected." Somewhere deep in space, systems humanity hoped would never activate again continued to warm. Because containment was only the beginning. And the galaxy had not yet seen what happened when correction failed. The galaxy did not sleep. No world did. From trade hubs to frontier stations, eyes stayed locked on live feeds showing human space wrapped in impossible geometry. The legacy fleets did not move aggressively. They held, like pillars forced into reality to keep it from tearing apart. And that frightened everyone more than explosions ever could. In the Galactic Council chamber, fear finally found words. "If they can stop fleets without firing," one delegate whispered, "what happens when they decide to fire?" The human representative stood alone at the center platform, hands folded, posture calm. He had not moved since the last transmission. "You misunderstand us," he said quietly. "We do not escalate quickly." The Supreme Marshal of the Virex Dominion looked up sharply. "You have already escalated beyond reason." The human met his gaze. "No, we have escalated beyond tolerance." That distinction landed hard. Across Virex-controlled space, panic spread. Military command structures fractured as fleets stopped responding. Not destroyed, just unreachable. Supply routes collapsed as navigation points quietly shut down. Entire sectors went blind, not through jamming, but absence. Space itself refused to cooperate. Then came the message. It did not originate from a ship. It came from everywhere at once. "This is a correction notice." The voice was human, calm, unemotional. "You are operating military assets in violation of long-standing survival constraints." Virex commanders screamed back in rage, fear, denial. Threats poured into the void. The voice continued, uninterrupted. "Phase 4 is now active." On the bridge of the UNS last argument, Captain Ionescu closed her eyes for half a second. They had hoped to never reach this point. "Begin selective disarmament," she ordered. Human ships moved for the first time with intent. They did not charge. They did not unleash volleys. They were touched. Human vessels slid close to alien warships, and entire weapons systems simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Removed. Matter restructured at the atomic level. Cannons became inert metal. Missile bays turned to empty cavities. Power cores downgraded into civilian-grade reactors. Alien crews stared at control panels that no longer matched reality. On one cruiser, a Virex engineer screamed as he tore open a weapons conduit, only to find smooth, harmless alloy where antimatter feeds had been seconds earlier. "This is impossible," he shouted. "No," replied a human voice on the open channel. "This is careful." Across the galaxy, fleets were being unmade without casualties. The realization spread like a sickness. Humanity was not fighting the Virex. They were editing them out of the war equation. Back in the council chamber, ancient delegates trembled. "They can rewrite military hardware mid-conflict," one said. "This level of control, this is not technology. It's doctrine." The human representative nodded once. "Correct. Doctrine," the marshal spat. "You built doctrine for extermination." The human's eyes hardened, not in anger, but resolve. "No," he said. "We built doctrine to prevent it." Then the alarms returned. Not from human space. From inside Virex territory. A signal spike erupted deep within their core systems. One last hidden fleet, autonomous, pre-authorized, activated a scorched space protocol. If they could not win, they would collapse star lanes, tear gravity wells apart, and poison entire regions of space. It was a final, reckless act. The council erupted in shouting. "You must stop them," delegates screamed at the human. The human representative did not answer immediately. Instead, he touched a control on the platform. And for the first time since the war began, humanity advanced. Legacy fleets shifted formation. Massive structures aligned, their surfaces unfolding into configurations never meant to be seen. Space screamed, not audibly, but mathematically. Entire star systems stabilized as human constructs anchored reality itself. The collapsing lanes froze mid-failure. Gravity fractures sealed like wounds closing. The Virex Doomsday fleet never finished charging. Humanity did not destroy it. They isolated it from existence. The region vanished, not as an explosion, but as if it had never been connected to the galaxy at all. No light escaped. No signal returned. A sealed pocket of nothing. The council chamber went silent. The Supreme Marshal stared at the blank space where his last hope had been. "You erased them," he whispered. The human representative shook his head slowly. "No. We contained them where they could harm no one else. They will live. They will think. And they will understand." The Marshal slumped. For the first time, the galaxy understood the true horror. Humanity did not kill their enemies. They left them with time. On human worlds, the population watched quiet confirmations scroll across screens. No celebrations. No cheers. Only relief. An old woman on Earth closed her eyes and whispered, "Please let this be enough." But it wasn't. Because restraint, once broken, leaves scars. Human command detected movement, not Virex, but others. Independent powers. Silent observers who had waited to see if humanity was bluffing. They were not. Now those powers began mobilizing, not to attack, but to prepare. Fear had shifted. Not fear of destruction. Fear of relevance. If humanity could enforce peace alone, what place did the galaxy have? In the UNS last argument, Captain Ionescu watched new markers appear on the tactical display. "They're waking up," an officer said quietly. "All of them." The captain nodded. "We knew they would." She turned toward the viewport, where ancient human constructs held space in perfect balance. "Signal Earth," she said. "Tell them Phase 4 succeeded." The officer hesitated. "And Phase 5? The captain's voice dropped. "Phase 5, she said, "is when the galaxy decides whether it wants guardians or supervision." Far away, in the council chamber, the human representative delivered his final words of the session. "This war is over," he said. "But the era it belonged to is not." Delegates leaned forward, afraid to breathe. "You declared war on us," he continued. "Now you must decide something harder." He paused. "Can the galaxy live without war? If someone is strong enough to stop it?" No one answered, because the answer terrified them more than conflict ever had. And as the legacy fleets held firm, humanity prepared for the next truth. Stopping one war was easy. Convincing the galaxy not to start another would be far harder. The galaxy did not rebel. It hesitated. For thousands of years, power had been shared, diluted across councils, alliances, and treaties that assumed no one species could enforce order alone. Humanity shattered that assumption without firing a single opening salvo. Now every world faced the same quiet question. What happens when peace has a custodian? In the days following Phase 4, human fleets did something unexpected. They stopped. Legacy constructs held position, stabilizing space, but no further actions followed. No new warnings. No ultimatums. No demands for territory or authority. Silence returned. But it was no longer comforting. In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions turned into endless debate. Delegates argued in lowered voices, afraid that volume itself might draw human attention. "They could take control of the council," one said. "Why haven't they?" "Because they don't need to," another replied grimly. The human representative remained present, but passive. He spoke only when addressed directly, answering questions without embellishment. A delegate finally asked what everyone feared. "What does humanity want?" The human took a moment before responding. "Nothing," he said. "That is the problem." Confusion rippled. "You dismantled an empire," the delegate pressed. "You rewrote warfare. You revealed systems older than our civilizations. And you want nothing?" The human nodded. "We want what we have always wanted. A galaxy that survives itself." That answer satisfied no one. On Virex core worlds, reality collapsed inward. The empire had not been conquered. Its fleets were gone. Its weapons neutralized. Its command structure intact, but powerless. Civilians looked to the skies and saw no invaders. Only absence. The Supreme Marshal stood alone in a darkened command hall, staring at a star map that no longer obeyed him. A subordinate approached cautiously. "Marshal, the people are asking who leads now." The Marshal did not turn. "Anyone but me." Across the galaxy, smaller powers began to panic, not from threat, but from displacement. Trade guilds feared irrelevance. Defense coalitions questioned purpose. Generations raised to prepare for war had no enemy left to define themselves against. And somewhere beneath it all, Resentment began to grow. Humanity felt it. On Earth, in a chamber buried deep beneath mountains older than recorded history, human leaders gathered. Not politicians, not admirals, stewards. They sat around a circular table of dark stone, each representing a region, a fleet, a philosophy shaped by centuries of restraint. The galaxy is destabilizing, one steward said. Not through violence, through identity collapse. They don't know how to exist without conflict, another added. A third leaned forward. We were warned of this. The oldest steward spoke last. Her voice carried the weight of memory. We chose guardianship because the alternative was extinction, she said. But guardianship always carries a cost. Silence followed. Resentment, someone whispered. Yes, the elder replied. And eventually defiance. In orbit above a neutral world, a human observation vessel drifted quietly. Inside, analysts tracked rising rhetoric across alien networks. They saw the words forming. Control, manipulation, hidden empire. Humanity had removed fear of destruction, but replaced it with fear of irrelevance. In one such world, a young alien philosopher addressed a crowded hall. We lived in fear of war, he said. Now we live in fear of peace we do not control. Applause followed. Humanity watched, not intervening. Let them speak, Captain Ionescu said aboard the last argument. Silencing fear only sharpens it. Her first officer frowned. What if speech becomes action? Then we respond, the captain said. Carefully. The response came sooner than expected. A coalition of mid-tier powers, species once protected by treaties, now exposed by irrelevance, announced a summit. Officially, it was about rebuilding galactic balance. Unofficially, it was about resisting human dominance. Humanity was invited. They declined. That refusal was interpreted as confirmation of suspicion. They won't even sit with us, a coalition leader said bitterly. They rule from the shadows. In the council chamber, the human representative finally spoke again, unprompted. You are afraid of us, he said. No one denied it. You believe guardianship is domination, he continued. And you are right to question it. The chamber stilled. Then stepped down. A delegate demanded. Disarm your fleets. Trust the council. The human's gaze hardened, not angrily, but with finality. We tried that once, he said. It ended in fire. Murmurs spread. You forget, he added, that we did not appoint ourselves. You created us. Every time you chose war over wisdom. The council erupted. You cannot hold us responsible for your choices. No, the human replied softly. But we can hold you accountable for repeating them. The coalition summit ended without agreement. Within days, covert activity spiked. Unauthorized research into human physics. Attempts to replicate containment fields. Dangerous experiments pushed by desperation. Humanity detected them all. They did not intervene. Until one experiment tore a hole in space-time near a populated system. Human response was instant. Legacy constructs realigned. Space stabilized. The rupture was sealed. Millions of lives saved. No announcement made. The coalition realized the truth too late. Humanity was not controlling them. Humanity was catching their mistakes. That realization broke something deeper. If humanity ever stopped, the galaxy would collapse under its own reckless curiosity. In the Earth chamber, the elder steward closed her eyes. This is the cost, she said. Dependence. A younger steward spoke bitterly. Then maybe it's time we stop saving them. The elder opened her eyes slowly and watched them burn again. Silence answered. Back aboard the last argument, Captain Ionescu received a priority signal. Unknown fleet activity, her officer reported. Not Virex. Not coalition. Origin unclear. How large? The officer swallowed. Small. Precise. Intentional. A message followed. Encrypted. Old. Familiar. Captain Ionescu's face hardened as she read it. They're testing us, she said. Who? The officer asked. She looked at the display showing a fleet that moved with unsettling confidence. Those who remember what we did before, she replied, and want to know if we're still willing to do it again. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Some saw humanity as saviors, others as jailers, and a few, very few, saw them as rivals worth challenging. The peace held, but it creaked. Because guardianship does not end war. It only delays the moment someone decides the guardian must fall. And humanity knew that moment was coming. They had always known. The fleet did not announce itself. That was the first warning. No challenge signals. No territorial claims. No political language wrapped around hidden threats. The unknown ships simply appeared at the edge of stabilized space and waited, perfectly still, perfectly aligned. Human sensors locked on immediately. These vessels aren't reacting to containment fields, an analyst reported aboard the last argument. They're compensating for them. Captain Ionescu felt a cold weight settle in her chest. That's not possible. It shouldn't be, the analyst agreed. But their movement patterns suggest prior knowledge. Prior knowledge of systems humanity had buried under layers of secrecy and myth. Across human command networks, priority flags ignited. Ancient protocols resurfaced, ones that had not been accessed since before the peace. Names appeared, not species names, event names. The elder stewards on Earth reconvened in silence as the same data streamed before them. One of them exhaled slowly. They survived. Another clenched their jaws. We made sure they couldn't. No, the elder corrected. We made sure they shouldn't have. The unknown fleet was small, only 12 vessels, but every one of them was wrong in ways human engineers struggled to articulate. They were not massive. They were not armed heavily. They were precise. Their hulls reflected containment fields instead of absorbing them. Their signatures shifted just enough to avoid predictive models. They did not force reality. They negotiated with it. A channel request appeared, encrypted with an algorithm humanity had not used in 3,000 years. The bridge of the last argument went silent. Captain Ionescu accepted the transmission. The figure that appeared was not alien. Not fully. It was humanoid, tall and narrow, with pale skin marked by faint geometric scars that glowed softly. Its eyes were calm, almost curious. You still exist, the figure said. Captain Ionescu straightened. So do you? The figure smiled slightly. We hoped. State your intent, she said. The figure tilted its head. Observation. That's not the intent. It is for us, the figure replied. We are the continuum. The ones who watched you end the last war. Ionescu felt the room tighten. You didn't end it, the figure continued. You paused it. We adapted. On Earth, the elder steward closed her eyes. So they call themselves that now, she murmured. The continuum had once been something else. A coalition of thinkers, scientists, and war survivors from multiple species who believed conflict was inevitable, and that the only way to survive it was to evolve beyond humanity's limits. They had rejected restraint. Humanity had stopped them. Quietly. You're violating stabilized space, Ionescu said. Withdraw. The continuum representative shook its head. We will not. Then you will be contained. The smile widened. We were hoping you'd try. The continuum fleet moved. Not forward. Sideways. They slid along vectors that did not exist on human charts, bypassing anchors and slipping between stabilized zones like water through fingers. Human systems flared in protest. They're not breaking containment, an officer shouted. They're stepping around it. The first human response vessel moved to intercept and failed. The continuum ship adjusted its position by a fraction, appearing suddenly behind it. No attack followed. Just proximity. A message pulsed through human channels. You still hesitate, the continuum said. Good. That means you're still human. Captain Ionescu's hands tightened into fists. Fire is authorized, she said quietly. Human ships responded, but not with weapons. They engaged in corrections. Reality stiffened. Space thickened. Movement became effort. The continuum ships slowed, but did not stop. Their hulls flared as internal systems countered human doctrine in real time. They're learning, an analyst said in disbelief. Every second we engage, they adapt. On Earth, the stewards watched with grim understanding. This is what happens when restraint teaches instead of ending, one said. The elder nodded. We spared them because we feared becoming executioners. And now they want to know if we still are. The continuum transmitted again, this time openly to the galaxy. We are proof, the message said, that humanity's peace is temporary. That control breeds stagnation. That guardians grow predictable. Across alien worlds, panic surged. A new power, one that defied even humanity. If they can challenge the guardians, a delegate whispered, then the guardians can fall. The council chamber descended into chaos. Captain Ionescu cut the broadcast. They're provoking the galaxy, she said, trying to destabilize trust. Yes, replied a calm voice behind her. She turned. A hologram of the elder steward stood on the bridge, something that had not happened in centuries. You know what they want, the elder said. They want us to end this, Ionescu replied. No, the elder corrected. They want to see how we end it. The Continuum fleet stopped again, this time deliberately. Their representative reappeared. We have no interest in ruling, it said. Only in evolution. You freeze the galaxy in a fragile balance. We want to see what happens when it moves again. You'll destroy it, Ionescu said. The figure's eyes softened. Or remake it. Silence stretched. Then Captain Ionescu made a choice. You remember what we did before, she said. But you don't understand why we stopped. The figure leaned closer. Enlighten us. We didn't stop because we couldn't go further, she said. We stopped because there was nothing left to save if we did. The elder steward spoke through the channel now. You believe evolution requires chaos, she said. We learn the opposite. It requires survival long enough to choose better. The Continuum considered this. For 3,000 years, it said, you chose for everyone else. Yes, the elder replied. And it nearly broke us. The Continuum ships shifted subtly, uncertain for the first time. What happens now? The representative asked. Captain Ionescu answered. Now, she said, you see the line we refuse to cross. Human space has changed. Not violently. Decisively. Legacy constructs reconfigured. Not for containment, but excision. A boundary formed. Perfectly smooth, perfectly final. This region, the elders said, is beyond the galaxy you know. Beyond trade. Beyond return. You would exile us? The Continuum asked. No, the elder replied. We would remove you from the equation. The Continuum fleet reacted instantly, trying to escape, to adapt, to learn. This time, humanity did not hesitate. Space closed. Not crushing, not erasing, redirecting. The Continuum ships vanished, not destroyed, not imprisoned, but displaced beyond the stabilized universe into a region where adaptation would take millennia. Silence returned. Human systems powered down slowly, as if exhausted. Across the galaxy, the feeds cut. The council chamber sat frozen. They just removed them, someone whispered. Yes, the human representative said softly. And that is why we fear escalation. Captain Ionescu slumped into her chair as the bridge lights dimmed. We crossed it, her first officer said quietly. She nodded. Just enough. On Earth, the elder steward stared at the darkened map. They'll call this tyranny, one steward said. They already do, the elder replied. But the galaxy still exists. She closed her eyes. And that will have to be enough. Far beyond known space, something drifted in silence, learning, remembering, waiting. And humanity knew the truth they had tried to forget. There would always be those who tested the Guardian. The only question was whether humanity could remain one, without becoming the final enemy. The galaxy breathed again, not in relief, in uncertainty. The disappearance of the Continuum did not spark celebration. There were no victory declarations, no grand announcements from humanity. The legacy fleets slowly reduced output, stabilizers easing back to dormant states. Space returned to something resembling normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Across alien worlds, the same question spread through every culture, every council, every private conversation whispered behind sealed doors. If humanity can remove gods, what happens when they decide someone else qualifies? In the Galactic Council chamber, delegates sat farther apart than before. Old alliances felt fragile. Words were chosen carefully now, not for diplomacy, but for survival. The human representative remained standing, hands folded, gaze steady. You exiled an entire civilization, one delegate said at last. Without trial, without consensus. The human nodded. Yes. That makes you no different from the tyrants you claim to stop. The chamber waited. The human did not rush his answer. When a fire spreads, he said, you do not debate with it. You remove fuel. You cut paths. You contain it before it consumes everything. You're calling us fuel? Another demanded. No, the human replied calmly. We are. That answer unsettled them more than defiance ever could. On Earth, the elder stewards felt the strain more deeply than anyone. Systems powered down, protocols sealed again, but the cost lingered. Humanity had crossed a line they had avoided for 3,000 years. They had not merely stopped a war. They had decided the fate of another path of evolution. A younger steward broke the silence. They'll never trust us again. The elder nodded. They never truly did. Then why keep pretending this is about peace? The elder looked up sharply. Because the alternative is admitting this is about responsibility. She gestured to the darkened star map. If we step away now, the galaxy will burn within a century. Not from malice, but from ambition, fear, and imitation. And if we stay? The younger asked. Then we become the measure, the elder said softly, of everything. That night, across thousands of worlds, protests erupted. Not violent yet. Philosophers, leaders, and common citizens demanded answers. Who watches the watchers? Who decides the line? What happens when humanity is wrong? Humanity listened. They did not censor. They did not intervene. They recorded everything. On the bridge of the last argument, Captain Ionescu watched the feeds with tired eyes. They're afraid of us, her first officer said. They should be, she replied. Fear keeps questions alive. And resentment. Ionescu did not answer immediately. Resentment, she said finally, keeps mistakes coming back. The warning arrived without ceremony. Not a fleet, not a weapon, a declaration. From the Galactic Council. A formal motion invoking an ancient clause, one written in the early days of the peace, never meant to be used. Collective Autonomy Resolution. In simple terms, the galaxy demanded humanity step down as guardian. No legacy fleets. No containment authority. No unilateral intervention. Shared oversight. Shared power. Shared risk. The human representative read the motion in silence. And if we refuse, he asked, then you declare yourselves rulers, the council speaker replied. And we will resist, together. The threat was real. Not because the galaxy could defeat humanity, but because resistance would fracture everything humanity was trying to preserve. On Earth, the stewards convened one final time. This is it, one said. If we accept, we risk extinction by committee. If we refuse, we become exactly what they fear. The room fell silent. The elder steward stood slowly. There is a third option, she said. Heads turned. We leave. Confusion erupted. Leave? Abandon the galaxy? That's madness. No, the elder said. It's restraint. She brought up a projection, an expansion of the excision boundary used on the continuum. We do not rule, she continued. We do not submit. We remove ourselves from the center. Someone whispered, you want to exile humanity? No, the elder corrected. We decentralize it. She explained. Humanity would dismantle the visible guardianship. The legacy fleets would withdraw beyond known space, maintaining stabilization only at the deepest structural levels. Unseen, untouchable. No more warnings. No more corrections. No more visible hands. But one thing would remain. A promise. If the galaxy breaks the rules badly enough, the elder said, we return. The stewards understood the weight immediately. Then they'll forget us again, one said. Yes, the elder replied. And that is the point. The decision passed unanimously. Not with pride. With exhaustion. The announcement was made quietly. Human fleets began to move, not forward, but away. One by one, legacy constructs folded into dimensions the galaxy could not follow. Stabilization fields remained, but the guardians vanished from sight. In the council chamber, disbelief reigned. They're leaving, a delegate whispered. The human representative nodded. You demanded autonomy, he said. You have it. And the next war? Someone asked sharply. The human met their gaze. That, he said, will be your responsibility. He turned to leave. Wait, the Supreme Marshal, no longer supreme, called out. Why do this? The human paused. Because if peace only exists when watched, he said, then it isn't peace. It's a cage. With that, he was gone. Across the galaxy, systems recalibrated. Power vacuums formed. Old rivalries stirred. Fear and hope tangled together. Humanity had stepped back, and everyone felt it. On Earth, the elder steward watched the last legacy signal fade. We've given them freedom, the younger steward said quietly. The elder nodded. And now, she replied, we find out if they deserve it. Far beyond known space, humanity waited, not as rulers, not as saviors, as witnesses. Because the hardest lesson humanity ever learned was not how to stop war. It was how to let others choose and live with the consequences. The galaxy did not collapse immediately. That surprised everyone. For a time, things even seemed hopeful. Without humanity's visible presence, old councils regained confidence. Trade resumed at full scale. Fleets patrolled borders again, not as enforcers of peace, but as symbols of sovereignty. Species told themselves that the age of guardians was over, and that maturity had finally arrived. They were wrong. The first cracks appeared quietly. A mining dispute in a fringe system escalated when one side deployed armed escorts for protection. Another power responded in kind. Shots were fired. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to remind everyone how easy it was. Humanity did not intervene. The second incident involved a research collective attempting to replicate partial containment physics. The experiment destabilized a moon's orbit. Millions evacuated. The system survived by chance alone. Humanity did not intervene. Each time disaster was narrowly avoided, leaders congratulated themselves. They called it proof that the galaxy could manage itself. But beneath the surface, something darker was growing. Fear without guardianship did not disappear. It competed. Across dozens of worlds, militaries expanded just in case. Doctrines hardened. Old grudges resurfaced, dressed in a new language. Treaties grew longer, more complex, more fragile. And always, the same thought lingered in every strategic mind. If humanity is gone, then power matters again. In deep space, far beyond known charts, humanity watched. Not through fleets, through listening posts, through long-range stabilizers woven into the structure of reality itself. They did not see every battle, but they saw trends. And the trends were familiar. On Earth, the stewards gathered in silence as reports flowed in. They're rearming faster than projected, one said. They're experimenting again, another added. Risk thresholds are dropping. The elder steward closed her eyes. How long? Someone asked. She did not answer at first. When the first star is deliberately broken, she said softly, we'll know. The moment came sooner than anyone expected. A border conflict between two rival powers escalated beyond restraint. One side deployed a weapon band even during the old wars. A gravity destabilizer designed to cripple entire systems. It was meant as a threat. It misfired. A star began to collapse in on itself, not naturally, but violently, dragging nearby worlds with it. Evacuation was impossible. Stabilization attempts failed. Across the galaxy, sensors screamed. This was not an accident. This was the kind of mistake humanity had spent 3,000 years preventing. Council chambers erupted in panic. They'll come back, someone whispered desperately. They have to. But humanity did not come back. Not yet. The star's collapse accelerated. Billions faced extinction. And then, something changed. Not a fleet. Not a message. The space around the star stiffened. The collapse slowed. Gravity vectors realigned just enough to halt the cascade. The star stabilized, scarred, dimmed, but alive. No ships appeared. No voice spoke. The intervention was invisible to the naked eye. But every advanced sensor in the galaxy registered it. Humanity had acted. Once. And then stopped. The message was unmistakable. We are still here. But we will not do this forever. Across the galaxy, leaders sat in stunned silence. Humanity had not returned as rulers. They had returned as a reminder. In the Galactic Council chamber, a new session convened. Not emergency, but reckoning. Delegates spoke openly now, without shouting. We failed, one admitted. We grew reckless, said another. A single intervention saved us, a third said quietly. And it may be the last we get. For the first time in centuries, no one argued. A proposal emerged, not from humanity, but from the galaxy itself. A charter. Simple, brutal, honest. No species would pursue weapons capable of systemic collapse. No experiments without shared oversight. No wars without consequence. And one final clause, one written with trembling hands. If humanity intervenes again, the galaxy will listen. The charter passed unanimously, not because of fear alone, but because, for the first time, the galaxy understood the weight humanity had carried. On Earth, the elder steward read the charter in silence. They learned, someone said hopefully. The elder did not smile. They learned something, she replied. Whether it lasts, remains to be seen. Will we step back again? The elder looked at the darkened star map, at a galaxy full of fragile choices. Yes, she said. We always do. Far beyond known space, legacy constructs returned to deeper dormancy. Stabilizers reduced output. Humanity withdrew once more, not fully gone, but distant enough to be forgotten again. On alien worlds, stories spread. Some painted humanity as tyrants who almost ruled the stars. Others were silent gods who chose mercy over domination. A few told the truth, that humanity had smiled at war, not because they loved it, but because they knew exactly what it would cost, and they were willing to pay it, so no one else had to. In a quiet human memorial hall, no banners marked victories. No names of enemies were carved in stone.